Hey ERBC family, this week I was listening to the news when I heard a reporter make the statement, across Europe, Easter has effectively been canceled. I'm here today to remind you that it's not possible to cancel something that's already happened. When we celebrate Easter, what we're celebrating is the fact of the resurrection. As I was thinking about that, I was thinking about one of my favorite Easter hymns. The hymn I'm talking about is He Lives. And I was thinking about the story behind the song. The question was asked, why should I worship a dead Jew? And that question, along with a dreadful sermon, became the inspiration behind the hymn which many of us have grown to know and love. Alfred Henry Akeley was born in Pennsylvania in 1887. He showed great promise as a child, and his musician father personally tutored him before sending him to New York City to study music. From there it was on to the Royal Academy of Music in London. Alfred then returned to the States to attend Westminster Seminary in Maryland, and he was ordained into the Presbyterian ministry in 1914. After pastoring a church in his home state of Pennsylvania, Alfred was called to a congregation in California. It was there in 1932 that Alfred met a Jewish man to whom he began witnessing. But the man resisted the Christian faith, saying, "Why should I worship a dead Jew?" That statement played on Alfred's mind as he prepared his Easter Sunday message. Rising early to prepare for the day, Alfred flipped on the radio as he shaved and was astonished to hear a famous liberal preacher in New York say, "Good morning, it's Easter. You know, folks, it really doesn't make any difference to me if Christ be risen or not. As far as I'm concerned, his body could be as dust in some Palestinian tomb. The main thing is, his truth goes marching on." Upon hearing those words, Alfred wanted to throw the radio against the wall. "It's a lie!" he shouted. He shouted so loudly that his wife rushed into the bathroom asking, "What are you shouting about so early in the morning?" "Didn't you hear what that good-for-nothing preacher just said?" Alfred replied. That morning, Akeley went on to preach with great enthusiasm the reality of Christ's resurrection. He did the same thing at the evening service. But later that night, he was still agitated over his friend's question and the sermon he'd heard that morning on the radio. "Listen here, Alfred Akeley," his wife finally said. "It's time you did that which you can do best. Why don't you write a song about it? And then maybe you'll feel better." Alfred went to his study, opened his Bible, and then reread the resurrection account from Mark's Gospel. A thrill went through him as he began writing the words to He Lives. A few minutes later, he was at the piano putting it to music. And today, nearly 1,000 years later, it remains one of the church's most triumphant Easter hymns. What you and I need to remember is that we celebrate Easter every weekend. Jesus' death and resurrection are the reason we meet. We gather together to worship a God who loved us so much that he sent his Son to die for us. We gather to worship a God who's so powerful that he raised Jesus from the grave, canceling our sin debt, conquering that debt forever, and enabling us to spend eternity with him. So whether we meet together in person for Easter 2020, or whether we meet virtually, Easter will not, Easter cannot be canceled. We serve a risen Savior.